Yeah. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Hello everyone, my name is Mira Seifu. Today's program will be hosted from the North American Mahibere Kidusan American Center located in Washington, D.C. We will be presenting a special program focused on the Victory of Adwa. We have prepared a variety of content for you to watch throughout the program. Please follow along. Thank you.
በ1878 ዓመተ ምህረት ገደማ እንግሊዝ፣ ፈረንሳይ፣ ጀርመን፣ ቤልጂየም እና ፖርቹጋል አብዛኞቹን የአፍሪካን ሀገሮች በቀኝ ግዛት ይዘው ነበር። ጣሊያን ሶማሌን በከፊል ከመያዟን በላይ ኢትዮጵያን ለመቆጣጠር እያሴረች ነበር። በ1881 ዓመተ ምህረት አጼ ምኒልክ እንዲህ ብለው ወሰኑ። የጣሊያንን ጦር መግጠሙ አያዋጣንም፣ ስለዚህ ሰላምና ስምምነት መፍጠር ይሻላል። በዚህ ሳቢያ በወሎ ጫሌ ላይ ሁለቱ ወገኖች ተገናኝተው የአማርኛና በጣሊያንኛ ቋንቋ የተዘጋጀ ውል ተፈራረሙ። አጼ ምኒልክም ለጊዜው ሰላም አገኙ። ሆኖም በጫሌ ውል አንቀጽ 17 በሁለቱ ቋንቋ መሃል የትርጉም ልዩነት ተገኘበት። የጫሌ ውል አንቀጽ 17 ሚያዝያ 25 ቀን 1881 ዓመተ ምህረት ውጫሌ
የኢትዮጵያ ቅጅ የኢትዮጵያ ንጉሠ ነገሥት ከአውሮፓ ነገሥታት ለሚፈልጉት ሁሉ በኢጣሊያ መንግስት አጋዥነት መላላክ ይቻላቸዋል። የጣሊያንኛው ቅጅ ትርጉም የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት ከውጭ ሀገር መንግስታት ጋር የሚያደርገውን ግንኙነት በኢጣሊያን መንግስት አማካኝነት ማድረግ ይገባዋል።
ከጥቂት ዓመታት በኋላ ጣሊያኖች አንድ ምክንያት ፈጥረን ኢትዮጵያን ቅኝ ግዛት ማድረግ አለብን ሲሉ አሰቡ። ለአውሮፓውያን መንግስታትም ውሉ በኢትዮጵያ ላይ ሙሉ ስልጣን እንደሚሰጣቸው በመግለጽ ዋሹ። የውጫሌ ውል የአማርኛው ትርጉም የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት የጣሊያን መንግስት ፈቃድ የመጠየቅ ግዴታ እንዳለበት ግን አይገልጽም። ውሉ የተጻፈበት የሁለቱ ቋንቋ ሐሳብ ለአጼ ምኒልክ ቀረበላቸው። እሳቸውም ለጣሊያኑ ንጉስ ኡምበርቶ ደብዳቤ ጽፈው የውሉ አንቀጽ 17 እንዲሻሻል ጠየቁ። ተቀማጭነቱ አዲስ አበባ የሆነው የጣሊያን ንጉስ መልእክተኛ ወደ ኢትዮጵያ ንጉሠ ነገሥት መጥቶ አጼ ምኒልክን እንደዚህ አላቸው።
ንጉሥ ሆይ በውጫሌ ውሉ አንቀጽ 17 የጠየቃችሁት ይህ ጥያቄ የጣሊያንን ሕዝብ ክብር የሚነካ ስለሆነ እንዲሻሻል አናደርግም።
እንዲህ ስትሉ ምን ማለታችሁ ነው? እኛ እኮ ነፃ ሀገር ነን። በፈለግነው ጊዜ ከማንኛውም ነፃ ሀገር ጋር በቀጥታ ግንኙነት መፍጠር እንችላለን።
እናንተ ስለ ሀገራችሁ ኩራትና ክብር እንደሚሰማችሁ ሁሉ እኛም ስለ ሀገራችን ኩራትና ክብር ይሰማናል።
እቴጌ ሀገራችሁ ደንበራ ተከብሮ ሃይማኖቷ ተጠብቆ እንድትኖር የኢጣሊያ እርዳታ ያስፈልጋችኋል።
እኛ የማንም እርዳታ ሳያሻን ሀገራችንንም ሃይማኖታችንንም መጠበቅ እንችላለን። እንደዚህ ከሆነ እንዲያውም ውሉ ሙሉ በሙሉ ይሰረዝ።
ይሰረዝ? ይህ ያገደ የኢጣሊያንን ሕዝብ ክብር በአውሮፓ ዘንድ ዝቅ ስለሚያደርገው አይሰረዝም። ግን ካልሆነ ጦርነት ይሆናል።
ይሁና፣ ጦርነት የመፈራ መስሎ ነው? እኔ ሴት ነኝ፣ ጦርነት አልወድም። ሆኖም ይህን ኢትዮጵያ የኢጣሊያ ጥገኛ የሚያደርግ ውል ከመቀበል ጦርነትን እመርጣለሁ። የዛሬ ሳምንት አድርገው በዚያም ይደነግጥልኝ አይደለም። እግሩን ለጠጠር ደረቱን ለጦር ሰጥቶ ሀገሩን የማያድን ሰው የሌላ አይምሰል። የገዛ ደሙን ገብሮ ለገዛ ሀገሩ መሞት ጌጡ ነው፣ ሞት አይባልም።
እሺ እንግዲህ እናያለን።
የአድዋ ጦርነት መነሻ ምክንያት ሆነ። ከዚያም ጣሊያኖች ወደ ኢትዮጵያ ዘልቀው ገቡ። የጣሊያን ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ፍራንቼስኮ ክሪስፒ ተዋግቶ የኢትዮጵያን ድል እንዲያደርግ ጀነራል አሬስቶ ባራቶሪን ሾመ። ጦርነቱም ተጀመረ። ጦርነቱ አይቀሬ መሆኑን ሲረዱ አፄ ምኒልክ ለተወሰነ ጊዜ ጦራቸውን ሲያሰለጥኑና መሳሪያ ሲገዙ ቆዩ። የጦር አበጋሾቻቸውን ራስ መኮንንን፣ ራስ ሚካኤልን፣ ራስ መንገሻና ሌሎቹን ሰብስበው የጦርነት እቅድ አወጡ። አፄ ምኒልክም የሚከተለውን የክተት አዋጅ አወጁ።
የኢትዮጵያ ንጉሠ ነገሥት እምዬ ምኒልክ የአድዋ ጦርነት ዘመቻ የክተት አዋጅ። አዋጅ አዋጅ አዋጅ!
እግዚአብሔር በቸርነቱ እስካሁን ጠላት አጥፍቶ አገር አጥፍቶ አኖረኝ። እኔም እስካሁን በእግዚአብሔር ቸርነት ገዛው። ከእንግዲህ በሞትም ሞት ሁሉም ነውና ስለኔ ሞት አላዝንም። ደግሞ እግዚአብሔር አሳፍሮኝ አያውቅም፣ ወደፊትም ያሳፍረኛል ብዬ አልጠራጠርም። አሁን ግን ሀገር የሚያጠፋ ሃይማኖትን የሚለውጥ በፊት እግዚአብሔር የወሰነልንን በወር አልፎ መጥቷል። እኔም የሀገሬን ከብት ማለቅ የሰውን መርከብ አይቼ እስካሁን ዝም ብሎ ደግሞ እያለፈ እንደ ፍርፍር መሬት ቆፍር ጀመር። አሁን ግን በእግዚአብሔር ረዳትነት ሀገሬን አሳልፌ አልሰጠውም። የሀገሬ ሰው ከአሁን ቀደም የበደልሁ አይመስለኝም። አንተም እስካሁን አላስቀየምኸኝም። ጉልበት ያለ በጉልበት እርዳኝ፣ ጉልበት የሌለ ለልጅ ለሚስት ለሃይማኖት ስትል በአዘን እርዳኝ። ወስልቴ የቀረ ግን ኋላ ትጣላኛለህ። አንተውህም ማርያም እነዚህ አማላጅ የለኝም። ዘመቻዬ በጥቅምት ነውና የሸዋ ሰው እስከ ጥቅምት ኩዴታ ድረስ ወረይኑ ከተናግኝ።
በሁሉም የሀገሪቱ ክፍሎች የሚገኙ ዜጎች ለጥሪው ምላሽ ሰጡ። ገበሬዎች እርሻቸውን ትተው፣ ግንበኞችና ባለእጆች መሳሪያቸውን አኑረው ለውጊያ አፄ ምኒልክን ተከተሉ። ጦሩን ሲቀላቀሉ ሚስቶቻቸውን ይዘው፣ የጭነት አጋሰሶቻቸውን ነተው፣ ጎራዳቸውን ታጥቀው፣ ጦራቸውን ጨብጠውና ጠመንጃቸውን አንግተው ነበር። ከሁሉም በላይ ደግሞ የውጊያ ወኔያቸውን ተማምነው ነበር ከቤታቸው ወጡት። 100,000 ጦር፣ 20,000 አገልጋዮች፣ ምግብ አዘጋጆችና ቁስለኛ የሚረዱ ባለሙያዎች አብረው ዘምተው ነበር። የካቲት 23 1888 የአድዋ የጦርነት ውሎ። በዚህ ቀን ጎ ሲቀድ አፄ ምኒልክ ውጊያ ለመክፈት ወሰኑ። በጠቅላላ 73,000 የጦር ወታደር በጀግኖቹ የኢትዮጵያ የጦር መሪዎች እየተመራ ወደ አድዋ ጦርነት ተሰለፈ። ንጉሱ ከጦሩ በደረሱ ጊዜ አቡነ ማቴዎስ ካህናቱን ታቦተ ማርያምን አስይዘው ከኋላ ቆመው ነበር። እቴጌ ጣይቱም ከአቡነ ማቴዎስና ከታቦተ ማርያም አጠገብ ከዘበኞቻቸውና ከደጋፊዎቻቸው ጋር ቆመው ነበር። የዘመቱትም የኢትዮጵያ መነኮሳት እጅግ ብዙ ነበሩ። ወይባ ጥፍ የዳባ ቀሚስ የለበሱ፣ የሰሌን ቆብ ያደረጉ ብዙ ነበሩ። የጦሩም ዕለት እኩሉ ከንጉሠ ነገሥቱ ጋር፣ እኩሉ ከንግስቲቱ ጋር፣ እኩሉ ከሰልፈኛው ጋር ሆነው ወደ ጦሩን የሚሄደውን እየናዘዙ የደከመውን እያበረታቱ ሲዋጉ ዋሉ። የአክሱም ሰዎች ስለ ማርያምን ይዘው ዓላማ ሰንደቃቸውን ጨምረው ከንግስቲቱ ከእቴጌ ጣይቱ ፊት ነበሩ። የጽዮን መለከተኞች ከእቴጌ ፊት መለከት ይነፉ ነበር። በዚህም እመቤታችን አፄ ምኒልክን ለመርዳት በረድኤት መምጣቷ ታወቀ።
ጌታዬ፣ እኔን ባሪያህን አታሳፍረኝ፣ በነገሬም ግባበት። እርዳታ ትችላለህና እቴጌም በጦርነቱ መሃል ቃላቸውን አፈፍ አድርገው አይዞህ አንተ ምን ሆነሃል ድሉኛ ነው በለው እያሉ ያበረታቱ የሴቶችን ባህሪ ትተው እንደተመረጠ የጦር አርበኛ ሆነው ዋሉ። የእቴጌ መድፈኞች እቴጌ በቆሙበት በስተቀኝ መልሰው መድፍ ቢተኩሱ በመካከል የወጣውን የጣሊያን ሰልፍ አስለቀቁት። በዚህ ጊዜ ኢጣሊያው ሽሽት ጀመረ። አቡነ ማቴዎስም ታቦተ ማርያምን ይዘው ካህናቱም መነኮሳቱም ሆነው ምህላም ይዘው የጊዮርጊስን ስባተ ፍቁር ያደርሱ ነበር። ካህናቱም ምህላውና የጊዮርጊስን ስባተ ፍቁር አድርሰው ሳይጨርሱ ወዲያው ድል ሆነ። የፊተኛው የጣሊያን ሰልፍ ተሸነፈ። አጼ ምኒልክ የፊተኛውን ጦር ድል ካደረጉ በኋላ ወደፊት ተጓዙ። ወደፊት ገፍተው ያገኙትን የጣሊያን ጦር ሁሉ ድል አደረጉ። ቅዱስ ጊዮርጊስም በረድኤት የኢትዮጵያን ጦር ሲያግዝ ዋለ። የአድዋ ጦርነት በዚህ ሁኔታ ተጠናቀቀ። በዘመናዊ የሰው ልጅ ታሪክ የጥቁር የአፍሪካ ኃይል ዘመናዊ የሆነውን የአውሮፓ ጦር ሲያሸንፍ የመጀመሪያው ነበር። ከዚህ በኋላ አውሮፓውያንን የበላይና ልዩ ፍጡር ተደርገው መታየታቸው አበቃለት። አውሮፓውያን መሸነፍ እንደሚችሉና የማይደፍሩ እንዳልሆኑ በመገንዘብ የአፍሪካውያን እነርሱን መፍራታቸውን አቆሙ። የአድዋ ጦርነት የመላው አፍሪካ ድል ከመሆኑም በላይ ለአፍሪካ ነጻነት ፋና ወጊ ለመሆን ችሏል። ወስብሐት ለእግዚአብሔር።
Hello everyone, my name is Nahum Tamarat and I'm an 8th grader. I'm a student at Virginia Abner Girls Academy and the church I go to is Misconceptions Abner Teklamno Church. I'm joined by my two sisters and I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Ruth Adba. I'm in 9th grade. I also attend Virginia Abner Girls Academy. I go to Kidusan.
Hi, my name is Mira Seifu. I'm in 10th grade. I also attend Virginia Abuna Gorgorios Academy and I also go to Kidusan Church.
Today we'll be presenting about the Victory of Adwa. I'm going to be presenting the pre-war events, Ruth will be presenting the battle, and Mira will be presenting the post-war events. So without further ado, let's get started. In the mid-15th century, the expansion of the Ottoman Empire put a hold on European ties with the Middle and Far East. Because of this, the Europeans sent explorers to gain resources from around the world. One of the places was Africa. Then they sent missionaries to spy and learn more about the native people, which is then followed by the deployment of colonialists and their troops. In the 18th century, the Europeans scrambled to colonize Africa. They exploited the land and minerals, enslaved Africans, and changed the ancient names of countries to colonial names. Britain and France got the most land share of colonies. Here in this image, Britain's land is depicted as red and light red, and France's land is depicted as blue and light blue. Italy only got two territories, shown here as light green, and they're Libya and Italian Somaliland. Other colonizers include Belgium, Portugal, and Spain. Italy was falling behind with only two colonies. This was mainly because of the border conflict with Austria. So how did the Italians get a foothold in Ethiopia? Well, they sent religious missionaries to spy on the Ethiopian people. Giuseppe Sapito, who was one of them, was involved in the purchase of a 7-kilometer coastal area in Port Asab. Rubitino, a shipping company, was responsible for the purchase for 8,100 Maria Teresa from an adult sultan named Ibrahim. The Italian government gave Rubitino 417,000 lire and deployed their troops and began expanding to the port of Massawa. Ras Alula, who was the administrator of Hamasen, was disappointed by this expansion, so he fought the Italians in order to keep them away. This battle was called the Battle of Dogalindu, was fought in 1887. As mentioned before, the Italians had an occupation in Somalia called Italian Somaliland, and they attempted to occupy Harar, which was the southern-east province of Ethiopia. But by that time, King of Shah Minilik liberated Harar from Ami Abdullahi and appointed Ras Makonnen as the governor. The Italians didn't want to have two enemies at the same time, since Ras Alula was appointed by Emperor Johannes IV and Ras Makonnen was appointed by King of Shah Minilik. So after the death of Johannes IV, the Italians conquered Bahar and Nagash, which is now Eritrea, and King of Shah Minilik claimed the throne as Emperor of Ethiopia. Who is Emperor Minilik II? He was born in August 1844 and he was the son of King Haile Selassie of Shah. At 11 years old, he was taken by Emperor Theodosius II on due course of unifying Ethiopia from the era of local kings, or Zemene Mesafint. Emperor Theodosius kept him on his side, and this gave him the opportunity to learn about the government. But he was soon jailed in Mekdala, and he finally managed to escape to Shah in June 1865. After escaping captivity, he became King of Shah for 24 years until 1889, when he became Emperor of Ethiopia until he died in 1913. He is famously known for leading Ethiopia in the First Italo-Ethiopian War. Aside to helping Ethiopia keep its independence, he also modernized the country by building modern roads, bridges, postal system, telegraph lines, railroads, and many more. He also formed diplomatic ties with other nations. And now Ruth will be continuing the next portion.
Thank you, Nahum. I will now begin with Empress Taitu and the Battle of Adwa. Empress Taitu was born in 1840. She is the wife of Emperor Menelik II. She was fluent in the ancient language of Ge'ez, which was rare since women were not able to receive proper education at that time. She composed poetry and performed the begana, a traditional Ethiopian instrument. She also helped resolve conflicts between Emperor Menelik II and other tribal kings. She devised crucial tactics to defeating the Italian army. Along with Emperor Menelik II, she also helped modernize the country. She was also the strategist for the Battle of Mekelle. She had a strong tactical plan for holding the water supply, which won Ethiopia that battle. Another feat of Taitu was she led her own battalion in the Battle of Adwa. She agitated Menelik II and the others to stand up against the Italians once they realized they had been tricked. She told the Italians that Ethiopia was not afraid of war. The main cause of the Battle of Ottawa was because the Europeans would not stop at trying to colonize all of Africa. Their attempts included using brute force and strategic invasion tactics, and diplomacy that was in their favor, specifically the Treaty of Acharya. The Treaty of Acharya was signed on May 2nd, 1889, by Emperor Menelik II and Pietro Antonelli. There were 20 articles, and the versions differed on the 17th article. The Amharic version said that all business that the Ethiopian government makes with European powers can be made through Italy's government, whereas the Italian version said that all business that Ethiopia's government makes with European powers must be made through Italy's government. All of the agreements were seized once Menelik II was informed of this, and soon after the treaty was denounced in 1893. The picture on the right shows the Treaty of Acharya. The head commander for the Italians was General Baratieri. He did not want to continue the battle. He did not want to continue the war. However, the Italian prime minister did not want to back down after losing the first two battles, so he ordered him to continue. There are 4 generals assigned under General Baratieri: General Arimondi, General Dabormida, General Albertoni, and General Alina. These 3 depict images of the generals on the Italian side. There are multiple leaders on the Ethiopian side, including King Menelik II, Queen Taitu, Fitaurari Gabayehu, Ras Makonnen, Ras Mangasha, and Ras Alula, along with many others. There were approximately 100,000 Ethiopian troops, and they were armed with swords, spears, and outdated guns. They faced the above-mentioned generals and the European power with modern rifles. The commander-in-chief of the Ethiopian army was Fitaurari Gabayehu. The Ethiopian army advanced on February 29th, and the battle began on dawn of March 1st, 1896. This is Ras Alula, this is Ras Mangasha, and this is Ras Makonnen. The Ethiopian army easily dismantled the Italians. 5,000 Italian soldiers were killed, and half that amount were wounded. Over 2,400 Italian soldiers surrendered their cannons and rifles as well, and General Albertoni was one of those who surrendered. General Arimondi and General Dabormida were killed, and General Alina was wounded. The casualties on the Ethiopian side included Fitaurari Gabayo and 10,000 more soldiers who gave their lives for our country. This victory was not only the victory of Ethiopia, rather the victory of all Black people all around the world. There are various results of the Battle of Adwa. One was Italy abandoned all plans to colonize Ethiopia, since they lost nearly 60% of their men, whereas Ethiopia only lost around 10%. The Treaty of Addis Ababa was also established 10 months later. It also gave Ethiopia time to flourish and make advances in their culture. It also gave King Menelik II recognition throughout our country as well as Africa. I will now give the presentation to my sister Mira to finish the presentation.
Thank you, Ruth. For the rest of the presentation, I'll be talking about the results of the battle. So, how did the Battle of Adwa impact Ethiopia? Well, first off, Ethiopia gained popularity and sovereignty from other European nations. This includes France and Russia. Menelik II gained popularity and respect for helping the country stay free, and Ethiopia actually made relationships with some other African countries. In addition to this, they gained respect and recognition across the globe. Before COVID, the Battle of Adwa was celebrated with hundreds of residents coming together in front of Menelik's statue. From there, they would march with their badges and carry flags to show their pride. These photos are taken during the 123rd anniversary, which was 2 years ago. That being said, Ethiopia was not the only country impacted by this battle. In fact, all of Africa was. At the time, Ethiopia was the only country uncolonized by a European nation. So seeing a country that was uncolonized gave other African countries hope for freedom and for better days. It gave them pride in their country, in Africa, and in themselves, as well as fuel to protect their culture and identity. So what was the significance of the church? Well, we know that God and Virgin Mary was what helped win this battle, in addition to Kidus Georgis. It's important to note that the Italians were Catholic during the imperialism era, and they planned on spreading their religion all across Ethiopia. So winning this battle allowed for the preservation of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And how does it affect us today? First and foremost, this gave Ethiopia freedom from European rule. Secondly, here in America, Maryland Montgomery's County has declared the month of March as Adwa Victory Month, and the picture here is the document that proclaims so. In Ethiopia, many people will go to ceremonies, visit monuments to honor those who fought. And it's tradition to put a wreath around the monument of Emperor Menelik, which is the picture shown over here at the bottom. Now here's some additional facts that I'll be reading. First and foremost, the Italians thought that Ethiopians were barbarians in need of Roman civilization. By the end of the battle, it said that 298 Italian officers were dead. Italian interest in colonizing East Africa dates back to 1869 because of the opening of the Suez Canal. And lastly, the Italians advanced their forces on the night February 29th, and by dawn the battle had begun. The first picture depicts Emperor Menelik's hat and umbrella that he wore. The second picture shows the car that he rode on, and the third picture is Emperor Zewditu, his daughter's throne. All of these can be found in the National Museum of Ethiopia. These are the sources we used to make this presentation. Thank you for watching.
hope you enjoyed our presentation. Thank you for listening to us.
ዛሬ የመቶ አምስተኛን የአድዋ ድል በዓል ምክንያት በማድረግ አጭር ጭውውት ይዘን ቀርበናል። ተከታተሉ። እኔ መባ ነብያሉ እባላለሁ። እኔ ደግሞ ማሩስ ነብያሉ እባላለሁ። እኔ ናቆቶራ ለቢለው እባላለሁ። እኔ እሰይ ብርሃኑ እባላለሁ። ምንድነው ወንድሜ ያስኮረኮ? አንተ ምን አለበት ችግሬን አታውቀው? አድዋ ከመሄድ ዛሬ ተከክዬ ለምን እኮ ነው አሁን የሚሄደው? ታረም አለሽ እንዴ? ምንድነው ደግሞ? ታረም እባክሽ ተይኝ፣ አትከኪኝ። ሆዴን ያባባሽ ይቅርብህ ልጅ ነሽ፣ አትንገሪኝ። አድዋ 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 በልበኝ፣ እንደ አባቶቻችን ታሪክ ድገምበኝ። እንዳውም ማርያምን ስሟን የጠራች እንዳትቀርበኝ፣ ሂድና እይበኝ። ማርያምን አልምርህም በኝ፣ ስሟን የጠራሽ እሷ ትርዳበኝ። ይልቅ ለትውልዱ ለሕፃናት ሁሉ መንገድ ጠራጊ አርያ ሁን በኝ። እባክሽ ተይኝ፣ እባክሽ ተይኝ፣ ተይኝ፣ አትከልክይኝ። ደግሞ መለሆና የሚለው ዘንድሮ ግራ ገባኝ እኮ ሲነገር በሰማ ወንድሜ አምርሮ። ያ ሰላቶ ጣሊያን 125 ዓመት ከቆየ በኋላ ይብጣን ኢየሱስ ይደግድግና ወይስ ሰማያዊ ያጠፋን መጣ? ጣሊያን የመሰለ ሌላ ጠላት መጣ ወይስ እኔም ነገር ከመጣች ስጣታ? ችግናከቶ ምን ይማርገባሽ? ጣሊያን በሌለበት ጣሊያን ያለሽ እንዴ? አፊቱን እሱ ቢመጣም ነገ እመለሰው ነበር ተወረን በግድ። አሁን የመጣው ግን ከጥንቱ የባሰ ሚኒሊክ አባሮች እንዲያ እንዳረፈረ መርቡቀና በራስ ስትዘጋ ዳግም ተመለሰ። ዋ እውነት ነው። አትልም ጥሩ ማስተውላል። እውነትና ሀገርም ማሰብ ጀምረዋል። ጣሊያን ሲመጣ እኮ መች እንዲሆነና ዘመኑ መልከፋ ሰውስ እንደሆኑ መች ተለያየና እምነትና ማኙ መች ተራራቁና ገረ ማርያም ሲባል ስማንም ሲሰማ ይላል አቤት ወሬ ድምፁ እያሰማ ለሀገሩ ለእምነቱ ውስጥ የሚደማ። አሁን የመጣው ግን ከጥንቱ የባሰ ግብሩ ጣሊያን ሆኖ ስሙ የተቀየረ ከውጭ ያልመጣ ውስጣችን ያኖረ ወንዱንም ሴቱንም ሕፃን ሽማግሌ ሁሉን ያማረረ እሱ ሊዋጋ ነው ገና በዚህ ዕድሜው እንዲህ ያመረረ። እንዲያው ሆነማ ነገሩ ምስጢሩ ታሪኩን ካወቀ ከምንጩ ከስሩ ሀገር ካስበለጠ ከራሱ ከክብሩ ታዲያ ይህ እንጂ የሞት ለሀገሩ ምንድነው ከልካላ ምንድነው? ምክር ማድረግ ነው ጥሩ ነው መምከሩ። እኔም አልከፋኝም ሀሳቡን መንገሩ። ችግሩ ጊዜ እንዲህ አይነት ሀሳብ ወንድ የሚመጣ በአመት አንዴ እኮ ነው አድዋ ሲመጣ። ያ
ያኔ እኮ እምነት ነበር ታቦተ ጊዮርጊስን ይዞ የሚያወጣ። ያኔ ተስፋ ነበር ማርያምን በመጥራት ከሀገር የሚያስወጣ። ያኔ ፍቅር ነበር አልመርህብ ሲባል ደስ እያለው ሁሉን ለሞት የሚወጣ። ታዲያ ማነው ዛሬ የመጣውን መንፈስ ማርያምን በመጥራት ከሀገር የሚያስወጣ? ታዲያ ማነው ዛሬ ጠላት መጣ ብሎ ታቦት የሚያወጣ? ታዲያ ማነው ዛሬ ለሃይማኖት ብሎ ለሞት የሚወጣ? ሰላምና ፍቅር እንዲሁ በሜዳ አድዋ አድዋ በማለት አይመጣ። ያው በዓመት አንዴ የካቲት ይመጣ። ኦሆ አይ ሰላም ነገር እንዲያ በዚህ ምን ባልተፈጠርሽ ነበር። ነገር ተለውጦ በሆነበት ጊዜ ሁሉም እንዳልነበር ማን ይስማ ዛሬ እንዳመጫወቻ ከመቀጠል በቀር። እኔ ያልኩት እኮ ሄጄ ነውና ቦታውን ስፍራውን ድካሙን የና ማጣተራኑን ልዳበሰውና ዋውን አፈሩን የአባቶች ታሪክ ለሁሉም ነገር ታሪኩ ተዳፍሎ እዛ ቻንዳ ይቀር። የትውልድ ዛሬ ታሪኩ ከሰማ ሀገሩን ይጠቅማል። በመስራት ባላማ ያን ያለዋናል የክብራችንና የድላችን አርማ። አሁን ደግበናል፣ ነገሩን ገብቷል። ተመካሪ ሳይሆን መካሪ ሆነሃል። ስለዚህ ሁላችሁ አድዋን ከማክበር ሁሌ በዘመቻ ይልቅ ከፍ በላችሁ ምግባርና ሃይማኖት የለበሰ ትውልድ ስሩ በዘመቻ። ያኔ ከትውልዱ ሚኒሊክ ያሁኑ ጣይቱን ያሁኑ ማርያምን እያሉ ስሟን የሚጠሩ ልጆች ይነሳሉ። ክብር የሚሰጡ ሁሉን እንዳመሉ ያኔ ይከበራል አድዋም ለብቻ ከነሙሉ ክብሩ። ሁላችንም ያኔ አብረን እንሄዳለን ሰላምና ፍቅር ይዘን ለሀገሩ።
ሰላምና ፍቅር ይዘን ለሀገሩ። ሰላምና ፍቅር ይዘን ለሀገሩ።
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። አንቺ አድዋ ያየነብሽ ድል ደስታ ለጥቁር ሕዝብ ሁሉ ተላ። ሕዝብሽ በህብረት የዘመተው ጳጳስ ካህናቱ ታቦት ስዕሉን ይዘው እናቶችም አገልግል ስንቅን አዝለው ማን ያልሄዳለ የአፄ ምኒልክን ትእዛዝ ሰምተው ከሰሜን ከደቡብ ከምዕራብ ከምስራቅ ሰው ሁሉ ምላሽ የሰጠው አባቶች ጸሎቱን የጊዮርጊስን ስብሐተ ፍቁር ሲያደርሱ ሰማዕቱ ጊዮርጊስ ፈጥኖ ደረሰ በፈረሱ። ጸሎቱም ሳያልቅ ወዲያውኑ ጠላቶቻችን ድል ተነሱ። ወስብሐት ለእግዚአብሔር።
ሰላም ልጆች፣ እዚህ ናችሁ? ደህና ናችሁ? ዛሬ ናቴ እበላለሁ፣ ቀለም ፊደል እንቀባለን። መጀመሪያ አለቀ። ፊደልና ቁጥር እንጽፋለን።
የኢትዮጵያ የባንዲራ ቀለም ነው። መጀመሪያ ክሉ በቃጫ ላይ ክሉ እንጠምጠማለን። አረንጓዴ ከዛ ቢጫ አረንጓዴ ቢጫ ከዛ ቀይ እንደዚህ ቃጫ እንጠመጥማለን። ቀጥሎ ክብር የሰራ መጠበቃ ላምጣብቃለን መጠበቃ ሲሚቀጥል አሚ ታይደኛለች አሁን እናጣብቃለን the bichake sefit selam amang kelazao
Selam, my name's Amanda Seifu, and I'm from Abuna Gorgorius School's Alexandria branch from Virginia. I go to Sandase Church, and I'm a high school senior. Today, I'm proud to interview Professor Haile Garima. Professor Garima is a film director, producer, and screenwriter. Additionally, he teaches at Howard University, located in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us today, Professor Garima. It's very nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you, my sister.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself?
Well, you did introduce me. My name is Haile Garima. Of course, I'm not teaching at Howard anymore. I have retired. Now I'm an independent filmmaker.
Congratulations. So to start off, what led you to pursue the film industry?
Well, I would say filmmaking for me was a logical, although I didn't know it when I was young, it was a logical journey to have come towards cinema. Although my initial childhood nurturing deals with storytelling. My grandmother was a storyteller, my father was a playwright, my mother was a good storyteller. So storytelling was the reason I got into first theater, then after so many years in the United States, I began to study filmmaking at UCLA. And from then on, I've been trying to make films on my own. I'm an independent filmmaker. I don't belong to any industry. It's very different. And that's why I teach, work, and make my movies.
That's amazing. What would you say the hardest part of your journey leading to where you are today is?
Well, it's really more the lack of economic means to really tell as many films I would have told or would like to tell. And so in filmmaking, the biggest problem is finance, especially for my type of filmmaker who wants to make films that I want to make films. I don't like to be given by nobody what kind of film to make. Therefore, that makes it harder to get financing. But still, it takes me years, but I've done few films.
Let's elaborate on the financial issues. How do you get around that, and where do you go to seek the profits or the money to make the films?
Well, in my case, in my own case, it would be that it's a common problem to all Africa. Ethiopia, there was no national policy on cinema. There's not a national policy on cinema. Ethiopians do not finance their culture. Ethiopians do not invest. Those who even have resources do not invest in cinema. Therefore, if I want to tell a film about certain stories where I grew up, or my grandfather, or Emperor Minilik, or Teget Aitu, or any story I want to do, there is no finance for them, period. Because we Ethiopians, and in general Africans, we do not consider culture as a very important part of being human and transformative in the world. And so we always think it's stomach, food, okay, shelter, and fancy life and dancing, whatever. We think that's life. And therefore, we don't invest on the cultural sphere to bring about a very diverse story, as diverse as Ethiopia is. But it's an African problem in general. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I also make films in America dealing with African American question, because that's also what my orientation has been. Since I came to America, I've been in the community of African Americans. I try to tell their stories as my story, not only their stories, but as my own story. and therefore it's difficult to make this kinds of cinematic intervention in the society unless you are a descendant of the white supremacist culture of America.
So there are definitely some struggles, as you've mentioned, to creating these films. But what would you say is the most rewarding part of sharing this culture through film?
When people, especially when Black people line up, go to see your film and give you feedback to improve you, to make you be a better filmmaker, is the best part of filmmaking for me.
That's amazing. You mentioned that you were born in Ethiopia, so I wanted to ask, how has your perspective as an immigrant impacted your career in the U.S.?
Well, first, my perspective was a very distorted perspective, a colonized perspective. I came to America thinking my country was backward. I came to a civilized country, but in the process, I discovered or began to repossess the cultural legacy of my ancestors that have become crucial once I regained my consciousness. So, you know, when I came to America, I was a colonized person. I went to school where the very school at the time I was growing was designed by the British, and the British using English imperial language created a cultural dynamics that meant that ended up dwarfing and undermining our own cultural legacy, the kind of rich legacy that was handed down to Ethiopians for generations. And so for me, regaining, once I got to America, and then I was engulfed in the African American and the African Revolution of change, where the African man and woman was demanding their historical place, their significance in this planet, and recalling their lost and undermined history. That whole flood, embraced me and made me regain my sanity, I would say.
Would you say there were some monumental events that helped you create this new perspective for yourself?
I think it's I would say the Pan-African movement of the 60s, 70s, when I actually hit on it. The whole Black Power movement. It was a movement that struggled to restore the glorious history of Africans, and the displacement of Africans by colonialism. This spoke to me a great deal, and I would say that. But then again, my father wrote plays against colonialism. He fought against the Italians as a guerrilla fighter, and therefore I also, in the background, that the part of the history I neglected was my own father's and mother's and grandmother's story of struggle and triumph, and that also fed into my cultural consciousness that I was tangling with in America, with the Black movement. So the Black movement, in other words, in America, the African American movement, made me respect and begin to recollect and regain things I have helped lose due to my outlandish colonial state of mind.
It sounds like a lot of events in the U.S. helped you entangle them with your own background to create these films, which is amazing. And I'm going to shift a little bit towards your cafe, Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. So to start off, what motivated you to create this cafe?
Well, first, it's really, we made a film called Sankofa that went very, very big by the very endorsement of the African American population. When we finished that film, white America made sure the film will not be seen in this country. But black people took the film and literally created a community organization called the Sankofa Family and made the films succeed in theaters all the way to South Africa and Europe. They put my film on the map. And so it was logical to create a cultural center to not lose sight of this significant event that happened with me and my wife, who made and produced this film. So we wanted to have a place we call liberated zone, where nobody tells us what to do but our own consciousness. And that's how Sankofa Bookstore first, and the cafe was a long lingering idea that we didn't have the skill nor the resources to have started it earlier, but it came along later on. But again, it is to create a community organizations where Africans who are concerned about Africans in the diaspora, Africans in Africa, Africans in Asia can come, debate, discuss, and learn to find one's own journey. So it's a base to encourage people. Many people, many organizations, African American organizations, who are in the study groups have used the facility. We carry Pan-African books. Ethiopian students, Somalia, Sudan students have met here to discuss, to study, to also do panel discussions, etc. So basically, I'm rushing it for you. This is the very idea of the Sankofa Video Books outfit here in Washington. But again, it is really due to the community support that we have survived this far. Even in the time of the COVID, we have survived because of I would say, the African American community and the African, not many Africans really, too many Africans are busy working for a livelihood. So I would say fundamentally, predominantly African Americans in America and in Washington, D.C. But I'll say even in America, because they order all the way from Louisiana, North Carolina, Florida, Mexico. They order books, videos from us, and that's how this whole thing functions.
That's truly inspiring, and also leads me into my next question. Where did the idea to combine a bookstore with a cafe come from?
Well, I'll say to you, I didn't know it, but my father, for example, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, he had opened a bookstore in Gondar, Ethiopia. And I used to help him work there, and a lot of the Arbeñas, those who fought with him, used to come to buy a book he wrote he wrote a book called Gondare Bagashau, meaning Gondare under his shield, or Gondare the shielded, or something to that effect. So it comes from that. I mean, I didn't know it. Apparently, I've ingested a whole lot of my own. Even when I was stupid, crazy, and dumb, I was ingesting a lot of what my grandmother, and my father were actually sprouting around my surroundings. So the bookstore is one, but the plays he wrote did certainly. I used to act in his plays. He used to take us all the way to Eritrea. He used to take us all the way to Adwa to show plays in Gondar. And so the bookstore idea comes from that. The playwriting comes from that. Even for example, Nagodgwad productions come from that. The name Nagodgwad, thunder, and Maifadu, for example, was my Giz name my father gave me. So one of my distribution companies, called Maifadu. So I'm rushing it on you, my sister, but basically I'm trying to encapsulate a very, very arduous, long, and difficult journey of self-discovery, appreciating things I neglected, undusting and carrying it to not only share with other people, but to help stabilize myself psychologically speaking.
It sounds like Sankofa Cafe has provided a place for all people to come and connect and also learn, which is amazing.
Okay, well, let me add something for you. For example, what you see in the back here is my editing facility. That's what Sankofa, the film itself, provided me. I did Adwa, the film here. I also am doing now a film called Black Lions and Roman Wolves about the Second World War as it began in Ethiopia when Mussolini fascist Italians invaded Ethiopia. So I finished a whole 5 hours movie on this subject matter here without much help, but some young Ethiopians who do fundraisings here and there for me. So basically, this is also the other part of it. Sankofa Video Books is also a production distribution company, which I didn't really tell you clearly. So we make films in here, we distribute from here. Okay, it's not easy, but it's our audacity.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like you've accomplished a lot in your career. So what advice would you share with people who are interested in following a similar career path to yours?
Well, I would say it depends where you are. It depends where one is. I have 6 kids I raised in America, and they have their own mind, and I pray for them not to squander, not to waste their time as confused as I was in the amount of time I spent confused. And the other thing is, young people should decide what they want to do, not by influenced by people, but by worshiping anything, but their callings. They have to find their callings by bumping into many things they should try, and then go towards filmmaking. In the end, is like any occupation you choose, but that storytelling gift is necessary. Cultivating it is important. Gift is not enough. You need to cultivate gift. You need to know your history. You need to know, first you need to know who the hell you are, where you come from, and then you should know the history, your immediate history, the general history, and the world history, so you don't become a casualty and a victim of English imperialism.
And talking about history, we're getting closer to the anniversary of Adwa. So I wanted to shift towards the Victory of Adwa. One of your documentaries is about the battle, and it captures the determination of the Ethiopian people and explains the history of the event. And since we're about to celebrate the anniversary, I wanted to ask you a few questions about the battle. And starting with, why do we celebrate Adwa?
Well, if we don't, are you talking about Ethiopians or everybody else?
Starting with Ethiopians.
Well, let me tell you something very interesting. I'm not, when I was growing up in Gondar, when I was growing up when I was going to high school in Jimma, when I went to high school in Addis, I don't remember celebrating Adwa. I come from a generation who was completely detached from its historical legacy. My high school in Addis was near Balcha Hospital. I went to a Shimalis Habte high school. I went to Jimma Meazia Hasabat school. We didn't even know what the hell they were named for. Okay? We were going to school not knowing, but we knew the French Revolution. We knew the American Revolution. We knew George Washington's chariot. But it's like we were in the dumpster of husk, pretentious thing that impersonated knowledge. And so for me, as I told you, in America, began to gain my sanity, I start to realize this historical landmarks that even other people celebrate. Africans in America celebrated more Ethiopian history than we Ethiopian young people at the time I went to my early high school, and even when I was at the Haile Selassie Creative Arts Center, Haile Selassie University, most of the plays we were doing at the university was Shakespearean, except maybe Gash Tesfaye Augustus's play, Abat Knowledge, Guy's play maybe. Most of it is European, American, English influenced. And that's why I call English imperialism, because I'm not talking about British only, the language imperialism. I speak English by force. I think Amharic. You can understand it. If you really examine my English is not right, because I'm thinking in Amharic. I'm an Amharic thinking human being. But English imperialism has, imposed on top of my local cultural acculturation, it has imposed its own, for its own interest, to completely derail me from my own historical context. I'm a good example of that. And not many young people, young Ethiopians of my generation who are still alive now, I really understand what happened to us. It was like a hydrogen bomb was dropped in Ethiopia by idea only, not by real bomb, but just by idea only. And the whole generation completely was disoriented and scrambled from that. So for me, I come to America, I open a Langston Hughes poem. He's writing about my country when Italians were bombing Ethiopia in a book called Good Morning Revolution. Du Bois, Paul Robeson cites Ethiopia. So I said, dang, I must be coming from a great country. This is because these are the people I admired. Kwame Ture, who used to be called Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, these people, when they were like talking about Ethiopian civilization, I was ashamed, because apparently they're talking about something I neglected. And so all my life now really is recalling everything I neglected out of recklessness. So if you ask me anything, there's not many films I made, but it's trying to recollect out of the ashes of my own recklessness that I participated with American Peace Corps, British teachers, Egyptian teachers who were British brought to teach English, Sudanese teachers. These are the teachers that helped disorient me. And therefore, I live a life of repentance to recall my past. It's a kind of punishment when you think of it. So basically, Adwa, when I'm a walk now to do Adwa, the film I should have done a dramatic film about Itege Taitu and Minilik. It would have been the most powerful story ever told in motion picture. At that time, I didn't have the money to do what should be done. But then I said, okay, even if I don't get still living people, let me go talk to the mountain, to the land, to the earth, who can still speak to me to tell me what I have messed up.
You mentioned that Adwa has influenced American history and just history in general with figures like Malcolm X. Could you elaborate on Adwa's contribution to the world and specifically Ethiopia throughout history?
Well, throughout the world, I should say. In America, I'm not speaking really white America, I'm speaking about black America. African Americans have always, even early in their 400 years of struggle in churches, in Pentecostal churches in the South, there's not a single Sunday they don't recite Ethiopia. That's something I'm sure you will begin to see more if you're not aware of it. But the other part of it is Adwa was a triumph to all the people of the world who were suffering under white supremacist, primitive and neocolonialism, to become neocolonialism, but primitive colonialism. If you go to Iran, you will find women having a fan made out of a picture of Iteget Haito and Menelik. Why? Okay, the Tsar of Russia gave Menelik a prize. The Pan-African movement in in England, Manchester, England, made Minilik honorary chairman. And so it's all over Africa. For example, Ethiopia and Sudan, like they are now squabbling, they always fight. But the day Ethiopia won Adwa, it was a 3 o'clock war. In 3 o'clock, Ethiopians completely finished industrially armed European colonizer that all Africans were suffering from. That morning, Sudan stopped fighting with Ethiopia, and they were dancing for a whole 1 week, admiring Ethiopians for defeating Italians. What do you say? That is the global impact of Adwa. Not, I mean, we were learned and educated to minimize, disfigure, disorient our own historical legacy. But the world kept it up, even at the time it happened.
Yeah, just like you said, the world definitely still remembers Adwa. And coming back to present day, how would you say it impacts us today, Adwa's legacy?
Well, I would say this to you, Adwa for me shows Ethiopia's capacity. Ethiopia's capacity, not in a hunky-dory way, Ethiopia's capacity to win, regardless of small contradictions, even big contradictions we have with each other. Adwa teaches us that when you unite, Ethiopians united can defeat the devil, period. That's what it means. And this is the example that was written by Nkrumah of Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Pan-Africanists throughout the world. This is what they talk about. When they say Ethiopia, when they saw Ethiopia, they said, when they saw that history, including Mandela, when they saw that history, they said, it's possible. After all, imperialism and white supremacy is not omnipotent, it's defeatable. That's the best knowledge we need now when we are mentally colonized globally by white supremacist paradigm of civilization.
You mentioned earlier that your generation somewhat forgot about the Battle of Adwa. So what would you say this generation should learn from the significant figures who were part of the battle?
Well, let me tell you, but you got to know what happened to us because we neglected our past. You want to know that, then it becomes the military dictatorship of Mengistu Haile Mariam, the Derg barbarism and the murderers' act done against young Ethiopians, the subsequent issues that came directly from Ethiopian young people who went into EPRP, Mason, TPLF, EPLF, EPRP, all the movements, including the Eritrean EPLF, TPLF, etc., Mason. All these movements came out of the stomach of the disoriented Ethiopian generation. The repercussion, we're paying for that repercussion, for that negligence. If you hear Ethiopians killing each other, I will trace it for you from miseducation and disorientation of one's own history. There's nothing that happened in Ethiopia from Haile Selassie time to Malles's time and maybe to the new time. This scar of this disoriented, disfigured generation continued to linger. Okay, and that is the lesson for my generation. The young generation should know, before they hate anybody, etc., they should know the disoriented generation left a legacy. Well, the wanting to, to change a country, to make it better, is the good part. But not knowing your country does not give you the license to change the country. One has to know oneself, one country, one's people, to have the license to be the politicians of those people. You can't just, by dictatorship, by generational right, start to decide which way Ethiopia should go. You have to know first who she is. Where does she come from? So for me, the lesson for young people is to say, don't be like the Haile Garima generation. Don't be like, it doesn't matter. All of us brag how our generation was political. Yeah, but political, but did we know our country? Did we know our history? We knew Europe, we knew Lenin, we knew what he ate for breakfast. We knew Stalin, we knew Mao, but we didn't know Abichu from Salale. We didn't know Amora women from Armachoho. We didn't know Garasu Duke from the Oromo area. Even Oromos don't know what their people have done in the Battle of Adwa, in the Battle of the Italian, the second time they came. So many would say to you, oh, it's not my history. No, your ancestors fought. Own what they fought for. I say to everybody, all Ethiopians from all region, all religion joined to make Adwa happen. This is why I told you it's a united Ethiopia. It's not a political appeasement I'm talking about. I'm talking about when Ethiopians from all religion, from all national group, from all region joined to fight. And when I say joined, by the way, not all of them joined. Okay? In any part of Ethiopia, when the Second World War came, okay, the guerrilla fighters from all regions, it was no monopoly on one region. There's not a region that didn't fight, but a majority of Ethiopians were also collaborators with Italians. And we hide behind those who chose to fight. But they are from all regions of Ethiopia. I have filmic documentation on this. On film. Bagahad የሚታይ, in other words.
You briefly mentioned that there are misconceptions around the battle. Could you elaborate on some of those and what you would say about them?
Yeah, because I myself started the film by that misconception. I was thinking, how can Ethiopians defeat white people? Because I was taught white people are number one, omnipotent, and gods of the world. So I asked my father, how? How can Ethiopians defeat this wretched people? How can we defeat white people? That's the problem we have mentally. And many Ethiopians who wrote history would say, oh, the Italians didn't know where the battle was, they were lost, excuse. They would say there were more Ethiopians than Italians, false excuse. The psychological component is always undermined. Ethiopians psychologically have two aspects of fighting. They have a psychological warfare system, psychological, but they also have psychological, self-psychological therapy they do pre-war to get going. And when a bullet was hitting them, until so many hours, they wouldn't feel the wound and be defeated because they were not mentally defeated in the head. And so the way they defeated, there were Ethiopian historians, English historians who will tell you one church was they thought the Italians thought this, they thought that. All this is excuse to say Ethiopians could not have defeated Europeans. It's to justify that. The scholarship is full of this documentation.
It sounds like Adwa has left us with rich history and valuable information that not just Ethiopians should cherish, but the world as a whole. And before we end this interview, what final message would you like to give the audience?
My sister, what do you mean final message? All of what I said is final.
About Adwa's impact on us.
Well, no, I've really told you. I know I don't know anything. What I would add on, because for me, Adwa, in its own merit, it's a historical reality. Will survive disoriented generations. It will survive our stupidity and ignorance. Adwa will always be there. It's already earmarked in the historical chapters of global history. It's up to us to own it, in spite of critical discussions we might have against it, Ethiopians. But still, the predominant idea or the symbolic idea of Adwaism is Pan-Africanism. It is an African wealth, an African history. In fact, that's why most Africans, regardless of lost Ethiopians, kept up the fire burning, the torch of Adwa burning all the time. If we were decisive, Adwa would be lost by now. We were actually exporting a lot of the paintings back to Italy. All the cannons Ethiopians took from the Italians at Adwa is back in Rome. I filmed it there, etc. So we're not possessive about our history. We should be possessive about our history. Share it with those who genuinely have a certain vitamin to get out of it. It's nutritious for the stabilization of the colonized mind.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and Adwa's history as well. The knowledge and your experiences were so valuable to us.
Thank you, my sister.
Thank you. Adwa has definitely left a mark for all of us, and in so many different ways, and you continue to share our country's history with the world. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us. And to those of my generation and others, I hope you enjoyed this interview and learned from Professor Haile Garima. His input on Adwa and his story was inspiring. And as we get closer to Adwa and celebrate it, it's important that we understand our history and honor it. Thank you again for joining us.
ውድ ታዳሚዎቻችን እስካሁን በነበረን ቆይታ እንደተደሰታችሁ ተስፋ እናደርጋለን። ይህን መርሃ ግብር ያዘጋጀንላችሁ በተተኪ ትውልድ እና ግቢ ጉባኤ ክፍላችን ነው። መልካም በዓል።
Hello everyone, we hope you've enjoyed the program that we prepared for you today. This program was coordinated by the Mahibere Kidusan American Center, Next Generation, and Campus Ministry section. Thank you for watching and happy holiday.
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሃዱ አምላክ አሜን። እንግዲህ ዘወትር ለእግዚአብሔር የምስጋናን መሥዋዕት ማለት ለስሙ የሚመሰክሩ የከንፈሮችን ፍሬ በእርሱ እናቅርብለት። የሐዋርያው የቅዱስ ጳውሎስ መልእክት ወደ ዕብራውያን ምዕራፍ 13 ቁጥር 15።
Bahre ቤተ